Hello, hello. Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services. I'm just doing some housekeeping as I normally do, sharing this page with other musicians. There we go. How is everyone doing this fine day? Felt like coming on live real quick right now so that um, as I see posts sometimes, it encourages me to share something that perhaps other musicians may have a question and can have that. I'm going to use the word fear. I don't think any musician that shows up, sits down to a keyboard at any time has a fear. But I'll use the word apprehension. No one likes to look uncomfortable when they're playing. So I want to be able to take away some of that uncomfortableness. So we have two who have joined us. I'm monitoring my page, just doing the monitoring so I can see who may come in. Welcome, Kimberly and Erica. I saw a post where uh, they talking about flowing chords and and OG sharing how to go about flowing chords when you're in service. So I always said there's no one can teach anyone how to swim unless there's a swimmer. No one can teach anyone how to fish unless they're a real fisherman by exercising by the actual exercise of fishing, and no one who can help instruct a church musician, past or present or future, on how to interpret what a musician does musically in a church setting than someone who has actually done that for, and I'll use the term decades. Sometimes when you're playing 4 or 5 years and you play just one genre of music, there is the uh, interpretation. I've got it, and I'm still not at the I've got it stage. Just adjusting some of my lights here. There we go there. So soften this one up just a bit. Gonna be here for a little bit, not too long. Got my lemon juice. All right, so let's get into it. For those that are here, thank you for coming in. Share this page if you will. I did share it with about 4 pages already. Flowing of chords. When you have a grasp on chords. Now, a lot of musicians may not have had a formal teacher sit down with them and give them a book and challenge them on learning chords. Musicians nowadays that are played by the instinct of audible hearing or tone, they can recognize high tones, low tones, and when they sit down to a piano, that is what they're doing when they're saying they're playing by ear. They're trying to remember what was the highest tone they heard, what was the middle tone they heard, and what was the lowest tone they heard. And let me give you a demonstration of that as we change scenes. When a musician hears another musician playing, and I'll keep this in my actual piano mode, they hear chords. Now I've played here, as you can look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes. Can you pick out without? Well, again, you're actually seeing the notes I'm playing by looking at the screen. Let me just put a pause there. Those are all tones built on a piano that is in tune, because it's a keyboard, so you can see those notes. And each one of those notes has a representative tone. They can't all be the same note, otherwise they would sound like one note. But each tone, your ear audibly, if I say the word correctly, can recognize it And then when you go and sit down to the keyboard and try to duplicate it, which is what you're doing when you play by ear, if you miss any of those notes, you may only get this because your ear may not be trained to hear a second note in there, a third note in there, a fourth note in there, a fifth note in there, and a sixth note. So how does one break down hearing every note that is in any particular chord? Because I would have changed the octave. Now it's a whole different set of tones, same key but pitched in a different key. How does one hear? And when you're talking about flowing in chords, how does one adjust to flowing in chords? The concept and the tip practice that I used was I played the chord and then I would change the key. Now, of course, the trick here, if you can't reach that note, you would roll. For those musicians who don't share this technique, if you can't reach this, you can hold the sustain pedal and roll so you can get the. Then I would go to the next pitch. I can reach this one. Then I would go to the next one. Again, I can't reach it, so I got to roll. All this does is help train my ears to hear the same chord but in a different key. So I can now roll. Got an expression pedal near here. Get out of the way. There we go. Chords. They're just a series of tones from a scale. Which, from a scale, you are deselecting what notes you don't want to hear, depending upon where you start that scale. Now, there's so many terminologies that I've been trying to adopt. The drop two. Things I've been doing for years, but never knew that there were terminologies to them for those who are more learned in music than I am. But I accept what they're saying. Drop two. If this is the 1, 2, 3, that's the second note. Drop it to the octave lower and play it together. Never knew that there was drop two until I began to listen to more learned musician, which always should put to rest that theory, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm always open to learn what I've been doing all these years. With all this, again, to me, where am I hearing the notes? I hear the G here, I hear it there because I've practiced. So now if I want to change that up, now some will have you do the. Nothing wrong with that. Major, minor, major, major, minor, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and back to your major. For those who are learned musicians, when I was learning how to play, I did not have someone to tell me that's what that was. I allowed my ears to hear. And every time I would add another note on that same string, I go, okay, that's what that sounds like. Okay. Yeah. So when I ran across a song that would use those basic major minor chord designations, I could hear it. Let me see. Lean on Me. Okay. said those basic songs using those, I go, oh, I know that because in my own time, I would have missed anyone. Forgive me for not checking to see who's in the room. Welcome, Gile, and let me just get your question. I struggle with the transition of all things to Christ by Deluxe Clark. Never quite transitioned that song before. Let me change my stream setup. I have no problem stopping what I'm doing to answer a question. I struggle with the transition in I Can Do All Things Through Christ by Dr. Matty Moss Clark, which I am familiar with that song. The E flat to C transition, never quite had a transition like it in a song before. John Lumpkin, I am familiar with that song. I was actually in a Church of God in Christ AIM in their music session when that song was being taught. So, of course, they don't stop to show the musicians those chords. But as I say, when you practice chords and placement of chords, especially choir singing with a musician who plays a particular style, you learn that. So I'm going to stop and go to that. This is what I'm trying to foster with musicians. Those type of songs that you're now forced into, not forced, but asked to learn. And you don't have a point of reference to say, this is where I have to go. So let me change into key of E flat. Oh, it's already E flat. I should have known that. Do all things Christ, the key, the E flat to C transition. When I'm walking right, I can do it. Perfect. Let me see. I can do all things through Christ. All it's doing is walking. And you saw me walking the chords. Major, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. Same concept. I can do all things through Christ. Walking down. All is walking down. Now a full chord. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Different key, but a transition chord. This is not the change you're talking about. G7th, C minor, now that change you're talking about, just walk it down. From right there, we're going to change it into a G7th. Walking right. Very basic. I do all things. A transition chord. There it is. Have to remember the chord. I'm going by. I haven't played this song since. Small with chords. I can do all things through Christ. Seventh. I can do They would have those people singing, walk down. Now, how did I know how to transition? I've always taught. If you know the scales are, if you know the notes in the scale, you can borrow the chords in any scale to move you around. The C major scale, I'm sorry, the E major scale is the C minor scale. Try that again. The E major scale. Start on the C and do a C minor scale. The exact same notes. It's just where you start. This makes it a E major scale, E flat major scale, I should say. This makes it a C minor scale, which means you can borrow the notes that is used in that scale. I can do all, right? C minor because, right? And walking it down because the E flat chords, again, a chord is a broken scale. That chord is in both scales. The bass that you select changes the sound of that scale. If you want to stay minor, but if you want to do it into a, sounds a lot different when you change the bass. That's why ear hearing, I'm going to say training, ear hearing and ear training is so important, because the chord stays the same, but what the additional notes you add changes the tone. And of course, wherever your root chord is going to be, or if your root chord is going to be down here. Musicians like to make, let me just switch my screen so I can see who has come in. Musicians like to make music so mysterious. Ooh, listen to this sound. Ooh, listen to that sound. Ooh, listen to these chords. When you take the ooh out of it, which is when you learn theory, and you all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, a light just turned on. There's no ooh in it. It's where you placed your notes, how long you've held it, what at what interval when you were playing it. Did you add that note? You see me play through the whole song. I have not played that song since I was in that rehearsal in 1980s, because my church choir did not sing it, but I learned it sitting in with listening to Twinkie Clark playing on the organ, and listening to Dr. Mattie Moss Clark teach the parts. I learned that song by ear by just being a musician. I was in the choir. They said if you want to be a part of the choir, you got to sing, but you're not going to play. I was open to understanding the different music that was being coming out of what was UNAC then, was called AIM then, out of the from the choir standpoint. So as a learning musician, and who have practiced these chords his entire life, I broke it down while they were teaching the song. There were some other songs they taught. Let me see. The earth is the Lord. Let me switch over here. The earth is the Lord and the spirit thereof. In that very same rehearsal. Now, I did not get to play, but because I was a musician who learned everything he could ever hear absorbed it, and I heard the placement of the chords, placement of the bass notes within a scale. I heard the go on to the major scale, go on to the minor scale, which is the classical scale. And there's two minor scales, harmonic minor and the minor scale. Gospel music uses primarily the actual harmonic scale because it's got more of a color tone in its music. Again, it's just a scale minus the notes gives you the chords. Learning that was just learning what was the technique they were using. She jumps around classically. That's all I had to practice because the chords were familiar to me from a practice standpoint. Giles Lumpkin, I have no problem doing that. Again, there is this phobia that an older musician refuses to share chords with musicians, and I've been for years trying to dispel that phobia. I realize that there's a lot of music I've learned you will never hear that I don't mind breaking down and sharing. In fact, when I listen to the younger musicians of today play, I'm secretly breaking down their chords. I was listening to a YouTube video of Glenn Gibson playing the Lord's Prayer for a young lady in the key of A major. I was breaking down his chords. Yes, I was. I said, okay, what is he doing in A major on an organ? In, out, okay. He's dropped two, and he put this chord there, okay. Put that chord there, okay. After a while, I said, okay, fine. Next. Thumb of the scale minus the notes gives you the chords. Very interesting. A chord is just a broken scale. And it's because it's not really looked at as a broken scale. I always love to cover the basics because no one showed me this. I had to get an understanding by breaking apart people's songs. As I say, if you take the C major scale, here to here, how many chords can you find in that octave? This is an exercise I practiced on my own. How many chords can I find? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, is those the only 4 chords found between here? And let's use all these notes. But first we did from here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that all I can find? Well, if I did this, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. What else is in there? What did I miss? 12. Let's see. What else can I find? That's 12 chords so far. I'm just looking to see how many more chords I can find in there. We did the minor. 13. I think I did this one already. I think I did that one. So 13. I omit 14. These are only the chords I'm finding from here to here. 14 I'm up to so far. That doesn't sound good. We could use that one. Okay, right, okay. 15. And I'm just looking between this range, playing with how many notes am I not playing to find a chord. I don't think I did that. I think I did do that. There we go. So at 15 chords, let's say I found 15 chords within this range. If I include the upper black notes, it expands it. Now you go. Right? note down, right? There we go. There it is. Within that range. All within that range. And when you practice just listening to what's in this range, anytime you go and you add another note, you add another series of chords. So I've always used the adage that how many chords can I hear within a certain range of notes? And when I hear other people play, I will recognize what that note is by omitting or adding a note within that range. Now, when they go outside that range, when they do the drop two voicing and they go outside that range, I now have to think past the original 8 notes and add another range of notes and try to omit what are they not playing. But I hope that takes kind of the mystery out. Now, I did all of that without a chord book. If you had a chord book, you could look in a chord book and they would have, I should say without a chord book. Let me put this in the key of C. There we go. You did have a chord book. You had OBS running in the background. Not OBS, but you had chord running in the background. I didn't have it the right key. Right? 1st, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I said 15, 10, 9, 10. There's 10. Who was 11? There's 11. 12. I don't think I had that one in there. Who was 13? 13. I guess that one could be 13. If we want to add that, 14. And we could add that, 15. And I'm actually stretching it now. But as you can see, they all were found in that range. The minute you add the black notes, now you add a whole different take that out. And all it is just using what's in a particular range, and if you played all the notes, it sounds like this. But if you begin to omit notes, I can be in an A flat, I can be in a D major 7th, just by adding that one note. I can be in a C7 plus 5, and you guys know this one for the preacher chords. Your diminished 7, your G7. I'm just adding the bass at the bottom. That's why it's changing. And my favorite, all by omitting notes from a scale. And I'm omitting notes from a major scale, not even a minor scale. If I was doing a minor scale, which is the one I like, the actual harmonic minor scale. That's the note that changes these two. The Richard Smallwood ending song. As I told you, if you know your harmonic minor scale, you will hear it being used in Richard Smallwood songs. But if someone hides that scale from you, if they don't tell you, these chords that are so mystical, and I use that term, are just scales omitting chords, then you won't know. You'll be asking, how do you go from an E flat to a C chord? It's a turn of what I call it turns on a seventh chord. For those of us that were raised in public school systems many years ago, when we would have assemblies, they would always play two chords, one to have you stand and one to have you sit. You'd get the stand chord, which was a 5 chord with a seventh, and then the sit chord, which was a root chord. I'll give you some of my history. This is what I went through, and again, because I paid attention to what was happening, I learned it. If you want kids to stand, you gave them a seventh chord. Stand, no, sit, right, stand, right. No, let me see. This was attention, right, and sit. Now you sit. The first chord got the attention of the kids. A seventh chord, all right, got the attention of the children, stand. Maybe not quite that chord, but. So, I always said a seventh chord gets you into another key. What do I mean by that? We're in the key of C. We want to go to the key of D flat or C sharp in this case. A seventh chord there would be the seventh chord in that key. Now, what changed? The introduction of all these notes, but what stayed the same? Right? Stay there and resolve. Quick, easy. Classical changes. Now the question comes, how would you get from a C to a D? Same seventh chord, change, which means the fifth chord played in the seventh. The fifth chord in a D major is the A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A seventh. Back down, back down, back down. Now, this is the part of it that I always love to challenge a person. If I was in a C major, how would I get to G flat from here? Sometimes you got to think about where it is you want to go to know how to get there. In a G flat, so D flat is my fifth note, which means a D seventh would take me to there. All right, but if I'm in the key of C, how do I do the D seventh? Well, you have to research where your notes are. There it is. So from here, you know you're going to go that easy. Where's my D7th chord at? There we go. Okay. Do that real slow. From here, a D7th. And now I'm going to G flat from the key of C. Okay, that's too easy, you say? So let's go from a C to A flat's too easy. Wow. I'm looking at all the keys. I'm trying to get the most difficult ones. So from C, that's too easy. I'm going from C to B flat. That's too easy. As I say, that's too easy. Why? Because that second note of second note of a B flat major scale is a C, so it's too easy. To an A major, even that's too easy because that's just a E7, which is again it's in the scale. That's too easy. Why? When it's notes that's common to it, then you can use those notes to get there. So when you hear a musician flow in his chords, he's just flowing. He changes the key. And you're sitting in there listening. How did he get there from? Because I know he was in C. And you say, how did he get up there? And he wants to, now in his mind, I want to get to G flat. But he knows what's coming up is a D7. It's all knowledge of where you are on the keyboard, what note you want to get to, or what scale of notes you want to get to, and knowing the technique. A seventh chord will always get you to a root chord. I should say, the fifth note with a seventh chord tone will always resolve to the root of that. Seventh to the root, seventh to the root, seventh to the root, seventh, seventh to the root. I'm not even looking, but because I hear it, so I hear it. G, A flat, A, F, B, C. Hard part is going back down. There it is. Without looking at the keyboard. I'm doing this from hearing and muscle memory because I've heard it before from practicing. My muscle memory tells me this is where you are, this is where your fingers should be, this is where the notes placement should be, and then my ears tell me I'm playing it correctly. If I were doing it in minors, diminished, minors, there it is, minus. There it is. Minors. Minor. Minor. Seventh to a minor. Seventh minor. Seventh B minor. Right? No. There it is. There it is. Once I understood the concept of the basic theory behind notes and chords, everything became easier. I didn't have to ask another musician, hey, what is the chord you hear in this song? Because I developed practice techniques that let me hear those chords from practicing. Take this off. I only need the headphones on to hear the music so I don't have feedback. So, questions. This is my question time. Stephanie, welcome for coming in. I'm watching on two screens so I don't miss anyone coming in. Questions. This is when I stop showing techniques and answer questions because I find that some musicians, as I say in my opening monologue statement, they are uncomfortable in articulating questions about, especially gospel music, or We want to use all these new vernaculars, worship style, flowing in the music. Um, how would you know when a preacher's gonna his articulation of tone, what chord to put with him? I've done this in the past. I've endured the raft of guest musicians who said, "Slow your fire, young man," because when I got older, I knew how to hold my fire until he was asking for it. And then because I would listen to the cadence of some preachers and singers, because everybody has their own tone, a resting spot where they feel more comfortable in singing. That's why, as a church musician, a lot of us did not have sheet music in front of us. That would be impossible. What would be the first thing you would teach a novice on how to play the keyboard? Scales, 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 scales. Only two of them, major and the harmonic minor, if they're going to play for a church. That would be the very first thing I would teach a novice on how to play the keyboard. How to recognize C, the middle C. Now, if they've got a keyboard that has 61 keys or 49 keys, I would tell them adjust your pitch setting so middle C sounds like middle C in the middle of the keyboard. Know the difference between high notes and low notes and the scales in between the two of them. I had put out a workbook back in 2008 to 2011 giving practical instructions from the music books I have on how to play scales in 2 octaves, because I always felt the more octaves of scales you can identify, the more chords that you can grasp from music. And I think at my younger age, as a youngster watching television cartoons on Saturday morning, I would watch the Bugs Bunny. He would always be fighting with Daffy Duck, and there was a scene where they would do I want to call it the Moon Night. Is it the Moon Night Sonata? I think it was Moon Night Sonata. Of course, I need to go and get the book and play it right. But I need to give you an idea what ear memory and training helped me to grasp. I would wait to hear that tune. Now I'm probably going to be starting it in the wrong key, but it helped me when I began to break down this chord versus scale thing. Let me see. There it is. Now, I am not a classical musician. Far from it. They would kick me out if I ever did that in front of a bunch of classical musicians. They'd laugh their heads off. This guy's got no touch, no technique. He has no idea what he's playing. But in the head of an 8-year-old who did not know how those tones were being made, it stuck in my mind. I want to know how to do this. How does those major minor chords, I didn't know what they were called back then. All I just knew that they were chords that resonated and stood in my head. And when I sat down to a keyboard, I couldn't find them. Then, find them now without a problem. And I don't even play that. I think I did one video where I used those chords. I opened up a song, Trust in the Lord, with using those chords. Because I felt like, hey, let me put these chords in trust and obey. Just give the idea that I'm opening up with a classical song, because because there's a lot more to that song, but the cartoons only used that portion of it. But that gave me the desire to want to learn more of what I heard. Yes, Thelma, octaves are very important because that adds more chords to your palette. You saw me in that demonstration there. I started in the middle of the keyboard and then I stretched out. And then I lost my bass hand because my bass hand had gotten comfortable where my right hand was, so it got left out there alone. So I missed a note when I changed key. But I caught it up. The minute I heard myself play the wrong note, I said to my head, says, "What are you doing on the F? You should be on the B flat." Went right to the B flat to finish out that particular chord. That's the other side of playing. A lot of musicians have yet to develop a good left hand that they can trust. And the only way to develop a good left hand that you can trust is to teach it the same things you taught your right hand. If you can play scales in your right hand, the left hand must know how to play scales too. And like two children on a play yard, they both got to be able to play together and separate. And that is not an easy thing to do. Probably took me 10 years to get very comfortable doing it because no one would tell me a technique on how to get the left hand and the right hand comfortable playing with each other. I'm a beginner. What advice would you have for me playing and developing finger placement technique? You start with the scales. And you hear me keep talking scales, and I saw a lot of musicians say, "Oh, the scales is not everything." Well, every note, every song you hear is from a scale. Every song. There's no song you have heard or will ever hear that is not built on a scale. There is a scale that helps to define what the melody is. There are chords that define what chords are supporting that melody. They are also built on a scale, either a major scale or a minor scale. Now, jazz is a whole different animal. I'm actually on a couple of YouTube subscribers to musicians who teach jazz theory because I don't know it. I might be faking around it, but I want to know it because I was never trained by a musician who could train a musician to play jazz. But when I hear their interpretations of why this person used that score, that what am I gonna put it? Why he used that chord in his melody, I look at it and I go, "Oh, wait a minute, I use that chord too, but I don't use it in jazz. I use it in gospel. Oh, look at this, and look how, and it's built on scales." What am I saying? And I'm working on this too. I think I may have posted that on my last time I was here. I'm learning Come Sunday by I shared this book in one of my last lives, and one guy was able to get it online. It was the last copy, and he paid less than what I did for it. But this is the book. Let me see if I can show that correctly. Creative Keyboard Deluxe. Again, I've worn this out. That's why it always falls apart. This is the back of it. Let's see if I can show that. There we go. And then here, it's called. This is the first page. You can read that. Deluxe Encyclopedia of Piano Chords, a complete and thorough analysis of chords applied to the piano keyboard. This is one of 20 books I have, but this is the one that has given me the most knowledge, and it actually does break down what I talk about. Very first page, what does it do with? Scales. It takes you through the knowledge that a lot of musicians maybe did not get, but have taught themselves by self-teaching. When I got this information and I began to look at what I don't know, and I began to apply what this book has, all of a sudden, everything became like, wow. When they break into the chords, and they show you the placement of the chords, what they look like in sheet music, and I began to just apply what's in the book. The most intact reference that's in this book. And again, I always show this book because it does give credence to what I'm trying to say. Here is one page. This is key of C. One page of chords, scales. Again, start off with scales, right? Then you turn the page, chords. Not just one page of chords, but 1, 2. This is all in the key of C. 3, 4. Still in the key of C. I think it's just, that's how many pages? 4. Yeah, okay. 4 pages of chords in the key of C. Yes, using notes from the other keys also, but that's why I say, when you learn the scales in every key, and you get a booklet that actually breaks down every chord in every key, you see why a E flat is used in the key of C, why a B major is used in the key of F. B major is not in the key of F scale, but in a chord name, it is. And then you start to apply. You start to apply chords to every song that you've learned. It may not fit in your vernacular. You may say, well, gee, this chord uses, for those who use the number system, this song has a 1, a 4, a 5, a 1, 6, 5, and a 1. For those that I'm going to, again, I always said I would talk to the number system as it relates to how songs are played. When you're learning a song that has the 1, and it goes to the 6, it goes to the 5, and it ends on the 4 and the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. An octave is 8. Starts with, really, it's octave 8 if you don't go any further. If you go further, it becomes 1 again. Again, this is why the number system, I've always said, leaves you sort of empty. You won't find this chord in the number system. It's the 1, but look how many chords, how many notes that I put around it. I'm still in the 1, but now I've changed it. There it is. I'm still in the 1, but look at all the chords. So I'm still doing the 1. This is the. I'm still in the 1, but look at all the chords I can place around the 1. So when you tell somebody, oh, we're going to be in the 1, which chord? Are we in this chord in the 1? So I'd rather give you the chord and then tell you it's in the C in the chord. But see, I've lost my train of thought now. See, now I got to find where I was talking from. I've lost my train of thought. In the number system. Oh, chord names. Basic chords. If we're going to go from the 1, we're going to go to the 4. We're going to go to the 6. We're going to go back to the 5. And just repeat. Wash and repeat. Wash, rinse, and repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 and the 4 and the 5, the 6, and when you build a song on the number system, that's just to help all the musicians who've never sat and who've never practiced with one another understand these are the notes we're going to change into. They say, someone once quoted that I read in a post, if you learn the bass of a song, you know the song. And I always argue that if you learn the melody and the chords and add the bass at the end, then you know the song. This does not teach me a song. Unless I'm doing that's all it does to me. A bass note does that. But in today's song, where you're learning, which break every chain. Break everything. gotta be careful so that the Facebook doesn't come after me. Basic chords. I'm of the old way. Which sounds better? Broken scales are chords, right? Broken scale are chords. The easier I think you make music, the more cohesive it becomes. By cohesive, I mean that you don't throw anybody off. You don't challenge a musician who missed the rehearsal with having to learn intricate movement. And, it's the difference between classical music and jazz. In jazz music, musician is playing what they feel. So if they miss a note or play it wrong, who cares? Why? Because he meant to do that, not he missed a note. That's what I think of the number system. It handcuffs a musician who wants to play more than one note. You relegate them to a chord structure, and if he goes out of that structure, he's looked at, you can't play, and that's really the wrong way to look at it. There's nothing that I have done right now to hopefully to intimidate a musician, because I was never taught how to play piano, and I keep stressing that in every video that I have for those musicians who feel that they are struggling because they're not sounding as good as the next guy or the next video they heard. Sam Talbot was never sat down by a formal piano teacher being paid, back in my day, probably $10 an hour to play piano. I got it from books and from trial and error. What could I hear? Where can my cousin get that book? One guy found it on Amazon. When I bought it, it was out of a Sam Ash store back in the 80s. I was surprised that the gentleman that found it on Amazon was able to find it. I was shocked because we were doing a live, and I showed him the book, and he said, "Welcome, Wayne." And he said, "Oh, I just bought the last one on Amazon." I said, "Well," and he paid less than what I paid for it. I think I paid $6.95 for the book. He got it for $3.95. So I would say go to Amazon. Amazon seems to be the world's online shopping market. If you can't find it on Amazon, it doesn't exist. I'll put it like that. But I try to, and I've always done this for all the years that I've been sharing technique and instructions, not speaking as an expert, but speaking as a guy who's still learning. As I say, I can't play jazz and be comfortable playing it. I bought a jazz book, and I began to look at it, and they were naming out jazz chords, and I'm like, what is a C with a little small O next to it? I didn't know what that meant. So I looked at the melody, and I go, okay, I know the melody, but what does that mean? I'm going to have to go and sit or go and view videos on YouTube by professional jazz instructors who do what I do, share what they know, the knowledge that they've learned, sitting with an expert, and say, here, novice. This is what this means, and this is how you apply it to this song. As I said, I was able to listen to Glenn Gibson playing the Lord's Prayer with a young woman in the key of A major. And the minute I heard his first notes, I go, yep, drop two. He's playing drop two chords around her singing. I go, yep, drop two, yep. They dropped that. Oh, he threw this chord. Oh, but he used this chord. Why did he use this chord there and not the one that I've played all this time? Second time around, he used the chord I always played. I go, oh, was he in the feeling? As sometimes he'll play with his head back. I said, did he miss it on purpose, or did he miss it on purpose? There was a purpose why the second time around he played the chord that I would have played in A major on that song. But it let me know that I can still hear music, even at aging Sam. I'll be, what, 66 in a couple of months? I want to make sure I don't miss anyone who has come in. So that's the importance that I always put, and I've always put on scales. I was trained to be a instrumentalist, French horn, mellophone, trombone, and flute. So I learned the scale from a sheet music standpoint and playing an instrument, but not chords. Chords I had to hear. As a young musician, I learned the 1812 overture, and I still loved that opening of that song because it was done by French horns, which I was the French horn player. So I got to play that opening of the song, and you would thought you were hearing a hymn being played. But that helped structure or build a structure in me that says I can apply these chords to the song. Let me just. All right, just had to answer a question. While I did the question, I showed you one of the things I would practice as a musician, just changing keys. When do you come on again? I have um, whatever I feel like it. I am retired after 48 consecutive years of working, and the COVID season. I said, let me get off the workforce after 48 years and enjoy retirement. So I can come on whenever I want to, or whenever the thought comes in my head. If you've been keeping up with my page, I've been posting videos for Black History Month. I've got about, I think, 10 I've done. I'm going to do a live, sort of like this, where where you see it set up, where I'm just going to play maybe for 10, 15 minutes. But as far as doing what I'm doing right now, as I say, I saw a post and someone was questioning about playing chords. How do you flow into playing chords? And I sort of got off of that when Thelma brought up the question about, no, well, not Thelma, when the young man brought up the question about how do you transition from E flat into C on the Matty Moss song, I Can Do All Things Through Christ. And that sort of took me into the tangent, you might say, of scale scale recognition, because again, there's no mystery in this. It's about knowledge. It's about understanding. When you first learn to speak, people are saying, say dada, say mama. If you're a 40-year-old still saying dada and mama the way you did it when you were early toddler, something is wrong. Music is that same thing. If you don't, oh, welcome, Mr. Darian Kirkendall. Always a pleasure having you come in and spend some time with me. Darian Kirkendall ran an actual school. I've never got to that level to have an actual physical school where he can help share knowledge. I use the internet because it's global. Anybody can step in and, especially in this format like this, live, ask questions. So I'm always willing to stop. Back to my train of thought. The number system teaches you the numbers, 1 through 8. So whatever key you're in, as long as you know what number you're on, that's the note that you should be playing. But when you learn the alphabet, which is the C, the major alphabet, the minor alphabet, the harmonic minor alphabet, the what is the other alphabet? The pentatonic alphabet. When you learn that alphabet, when you learn the minor scales and the major scales and the seventh and the diminished and the augmented and the sus scales and the chords, all of a sudden, all the music that you've been absorbing, listening to someone else play, begins to open up, because now you want to copy what you've heard. What you've seen me demonstrate is from years of playing, all my years. I still don't know it all. But that I do know, I try to be as I won't say the word perfect, as correct as I possibly can. Will I make mistakes? Yes. If I keep making the mistake, then I can't hear the mistake. So when I say, if you play the major scale in 2 octaves, not only will you train your ear, but you'll train your fingers how to move across the keyboard. There's a purpose for that. I don't do runs like a jazz musician does, but if I had to, I could discipline myself to do that. You hear me do what they call, it's not arpeggio, well, it's arpeggio, but a run of scales. Let me just, again, change my scene. Now, because this is what I would practice. I would hear musicians run across the keyboard. And I didn't know how they were able to do that until using this book that I've shown you. They shown me how many notes it takes to get from and continue. The correct way. It all turns on the thumb. Thumb. When I learned that, when I changed the scale, it no longer starts on the thumb, starts on the 3rd finger. That threw me when I first learned that. Again, looking at a book, teaching the correct way, because I didn't have an instructor. But there's the thumb again. There's the thumb again. There's the thumb again. Everything is turning on the thumb. So now I can go arpeggios is something that's different, but it also turns on the thumb. Where did the thumb fall? Can you? Kind of messed that up, but can you find the note? Can you do this with one finger? And on and on. How are your hands able to move across all of these keys? It should stop together. There we go. how comfortable are with hearing notes, tones, broken as they can be, all together, and finding them when you want to play them. That's not magic. That is not an anointing. That is discipline and practice. Now, the anointing comes when you're in a church setting or in any setting of music where you have people listening to what you're doing, and you can pull from what you've practiced and what you've learned, pull it out, and create a composition of music. I've often said, Mary, Mary, Mary Had a Little Lamb can be turned into a gospel sounding song if you knew how the technique to emulate what a gospel sounding song sounds like. What is a gospel sounding song? Seventh chords, diminished chords, minor six chords. Yeah, so we got major, minor sixes, sevenths, sus chords. I'll put that in there, and diminished chords. That's the gospel sound. Nothing mystical, nothing magical, nothing anointing about it. It's just a bunch of chords that are used to emulate a sound created from someone else. Every James Cleveland song I learned had the same chords. Every Reverend Timothy Wright song I learned had its set of chords. Every Thomas Whitfield song I learned had its gospel jazz chords. Every Chicago Mass Choir song I learned had its big band sounding chords. I have a request on my YouTube page now for one of my viewers wants me to teach the Clay Evans, the Clay Evans, or Milton Brunson version of "There Is No Way." I have to listen to it again. I remember learning it back when it first came out. Now there are several other versions now, but the original version was all big band sounding chords. I'm like, wow, I remember these chords. We did this in high school band. These big fat chords. As I say, I've got to go back and listen to the song on YouTube just to talk, because I always believe in giving the original chords. It was originally done in A flat. Most people now do it in G flat because they change it. Let me see. Yeah. There it is. Again, right? Bum, 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 bum. And what may do. And then there's the lead part. Nobody does the lead part to that song. There is a lead to it, the original song. But, yeah, big band sound, which is the placement of chords and the bass around notes. And I'm not going to give them all of that. I'm going to give them the basics of the song, because I think that they just want to feel comfortable learning that song in its original format. But I will give them the chords in that format that you saw there, and I'll talk to it. This chord fits here to support what the choir members are singing. This is the bass that they're using, because you can't do the sound of five instruments on just on the piano. Although I sometimes try to accomplish that because I hear it and I'll reach and I'll use a sustain pedal to hold one chord, and then I'll switch to the next one. That's what I'm comfortable doing. But yeah, that's it's uh, it's a labor. Yes, it is intensive. That's why I always tell a musician they shouldn't practice more than an hour a day. That they should live their life. Don't make this a lifelong thing unless you're going to be a classical musician playing Broadway or Radio City or one of the more prestigious Nashville Opry. If you're going to be one of that type of musicians, then yes, that's your whole life. You'll be practicing 9, 10 hours a day on one song. But for the basic church musician, especially the one who's now becoming a musician for a local church that's in your area, the music is a lot easier. You're not required to learn the big band sound, to learn the sound of structure of hymns, and the tonality of the spiritual. That's not a required course, but you're still in school. You still have to be able to interpret musically what that particular ministry needs. And you only get that from whomever's in the microphone. And by say that, you say, well, the pastor's over in the microphone. No, whoever's in that microphone, that is the tone for that ministry. Now, I hear people who play talk music, they're just playing a bunch of series of tones and chords they've learned from something just to keep the service from becoming dead by having no sound. You hear me talking sometimes. If you'd have met me 50 years ago, you couldn't get two sentences out of me. Not that I couldn't, but I let everybody else talk, and then they would pretty much say what I would say. So I wait to this age now to be able to articulate those things which I now know because the room is quiet. There's no people talking in front of me, nobody asking a question. I was the kid in the room that when they say, you have any questions, I would wait to hear somebody else ask the same question I would ask because I didn't want to appear I didn't know what I was doing. And most times someone would ask a question that I did not know. Then I go back and I go, okay, I don't know, that's where it's at. Okay. No need to ask the question anymore. So in this music world, as I say, a lot of the younger or novice, and I'll say novice, that means expert. I'm not an expert. I'm adequate. I can fulfill a position as a musician in a church, in any church, because I've done 3 denominations in my lifetime, and each one of them the next one was easier than the one previous to that. But in this new world of church musicians, you're called upon basically to bump or shout the church, which is, again, I'm not gonna challenge anyone on that. My church, the pastor didn't allow that, but when he did, I made it like a song. I'm not gonna do it here. I've got YouTube videos showing my technique in A flat, my A flat shout video, which even now when I look at it, I go, gee, my hands did move that fast on my bass hand because I didn't have a bass player. So my left hand, which was trained to play scales, can play like a bass player and move across the keys. And I can still do that now. But just as your novice musicians now, when you're put in a position, when they say, well, set the atmosphere, music-wise, then you're, as a novice musician, sitting there and going, well, no one told me what an atmosphere is. Let me give you my interpretation. If you're on a keyboard of setting an atmosphere as a novice musician, you're on a keyboard. Chances are you might not be on an organ, but you may be on the keyboard, and the musician or someone, a guest speaker or whoever's in the microphone looks over to the musician and say, musicians, give me an atmosphere so that we can take people to the throne of grace. And you're sitting there as a novice musician. I'm not going with the expert or the anointed musician, but a novice one. What key do I put it in? Let me give you a tip and a technique that you could work on. Let's change my scene. You always want to listen to the tone of the person that is talking. Now you listen to my tone. I talk musically. I've been told, oh, you sound like you're speaking musically. Yeah, I probably do. My tone is low. If I were to pitch my key, I'm down around here. Down around here. I'm trying to give a tone where I can find the key that I might be in. I'm down around here. A flat, I'm down around here. So if I'm just talking, let's find something to talk. African American Heritage Hymnal is where you go to get the chords from that you hear in the different songs. If you want to learn Twinkie Clark's chords to Praying Spirit, Praying Spirit chords are in that book. If you just open it up and turn the page, and you hear the exact chords that she's using on the album. Now, I just transitioned to playing the chords in Praying Spirit because I heard where I was going. I'd have to look up and see what page it's on. There it is. Just playing music behind what I hear myself saying. So if someone is speaking and they want you to set an atmosphere, find a piano tone, play 6 chords. A flat major 9 is called. Let me just stick that out. E flat major 6. Play 6 chords. If they're talking down here, this is where you want your notes to be, down here. Every now and then come up. Come back down while they're talking. And then transition from the 1 to the 4 to the 5. I'm giving you a chord. Again, I'm giving you the names that you would be giving to the bass player. To the 3. Or it could be the 1, but we having the bass on the 3. Transition again. This is while I'm talking, and I'm going to circle around these chords. 5, 2. Transition again. What is this? 5, 1, 4. Playing the notes in that there. Stayed in the 4, but I'm in the 5th note of the chord. Back to 3. Now you're in flowing. To the 6th. Drop it down. Back to your transition. 5, 1. Back to the 4. The 5. A scale. Da, 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 da. Walk up. And all I'm doing in my head, listening to myself talk, when I began to talk about Praying Spirit being found in the African American Heritage Hymnal, my mind said, okay, take it to Praying Spirit in the key that I'm in, surrounding the voice that I'm hearing in my head with what the chords in Praying Spirit. And a lot of what musicians do is they'll listen to what's happening when they're just playing their basic chords and just hovering around certain notes. If they hear a trick or a keyword in there, like if they're talking about, I would go to a hymn or something like that, or a song that I've learned in my past. But if they start talking about "Thank you, Lord," God has been good. To everyone here, lift your hands and say, I thank you for being around for another day. Not playing the entire song, but playing around snippets of it and then making up chords to support where that melody would be going, based upon, again, what you're hearing, what's being heard. The other part of setting, quote unquote, an atmosphere, if you have a keyboard and you can layer your sounds, bring in strings. Now I'm just using what this generically has set up. Layer, please. Layer my sounds. Thank you. You will use you. Now that's too high. If you can adjust the strings, now everything changes. Setting an atmosphere. There it is. I'm trying to set a chord. Scale. Chords. Putting chords around it. Holding a note. A bass. Jumping around. That's all I'm doing. All I'm doing is scales, chords down that scales. Changing the notes. That's, again, for those who want to make this so mysterious, I'm sorry if I'm breaking someone's bubble. If I am letting out trade secrets, I'm sorry if that's what I'm doing. I was trained as a musician first. Before I was anything else, before I was a church musician, I was a musician who was trained to understand notes, chords, placements, how they sound in different settings. The Disney sound, the jazz sound, the big band sound, the Caribbean sound. So when I hear those chords, I can identify where it came from, what style it is, the Afrocentric chords, the urban chords, the Brooklyn sound, for those that the LA sound, the Detroit sound, that would be the Twinkie Clark version of sounds. The LA sound is the Mike Burrell sound. The East Coast sound would be Butch Haywood. The Brooklyn sound is Butch Haywood, the late Melvin Crispell. I was trained to recognize sounds and then articulate them from a piano or an organ standpoint. So when musicians try to baffle you with this sound ushers in something, as a musician, I go, okay, let me hear whose sound you're using. As you saw me there, I was making that up. If I had to redo that again, I'd have to look at the video and go, okay, why did I go here? I was talking and I said to my mind, stay in a scale, walk down a scale with chords. Drop 2 chords, octave chords. Now go to a minor 6, which I said is the gospel sound. Go to diminished. I didn't go to diminished. I went minor 6 chords, which is the gospel sound. I went into a major scale of the next note. I was in A flat. I went to B flat, which is in the scale. And this time, rather than doing an E, I did the B flat note with a string sound behind it, and it gave an airy sound. That's the Disney sound. What do I mean by the Disney sound? Again, I will always talk to music based upon the understanding I have. The Disney sound. you find yourself listening to any Disney movies, you will hear that chord pattern, that phrasing of chords with a bass hanging in one note. You will hear that. That's, to me, that's the Disney sound. So when I hear that, I go, okay. Now of course there's the minor, I'll call that the dark sound, which is, I'm not even gonna play that. That's just minor chords followed by a major chord. Again, following a structured pattern of chords in a song. Well, I'm gonna bring this to an end. I just wanted to cover that's flowing in the music. It's based upon your understanding of what notes relative to chords are. Scale notes, chord notes, placement. Not just the right hand, but the left hand if you do on the piano, where the bass notes would go. How one bass note can change the sound of a chord. How adding a fourth note to a 3-note chord can change the entire chord in a different key. And then seeing how relative notes all work together. Again, the C minor scale is the E flat major scale, and that concept follows several. It's not just that one change there, but when you don't know, you can't apply understanding. You believe, or you're led to believe that this is new. And there are no new chords under the sun. It's just musicians who have worked on a technique to play them in a different range. As I say, I can listen to another musician playing a song, give me time, and I can mimic what they're doing. Just give me time to listen to it, break it down in my head, sit down to the piano, hear what notes they're not playing. That's why I say when you learn a scale and you omit notes, you'll find out what the chord is that's being used, because you know what notes not to play. Then you see the finger placement of how that note is being articulated by the person playing it. Jazz is a lot different. Even when I listen to jazz players, I gotta scratch my head. I can't do Art Tatum. I can't do Oscar Peterson. I can't do. I've watched them. I've listened to. I sit there and go, I can't do that, because I don't understand how they're getting from here to there clean without a mistake. Unless I just sit down, not with sheet music, but with my head, and just listen to it 1,000 times over and find what notes, how are they playing all those notes in that space of time. Since I don't have to do that, I don't have to do it. But if I wanted to, then being that I'm retired, I can always go back, pull up a video, get my beverage of choice, and learn and be taught by, quote unquote, the masters of their craft. So, any other questions for those of us that are here? I think at one time we had 5 people in the room, but sometimes people are in the room and they don't acknowledge themselves. Just looking down at my iPad to see who's here. So, any questions? I don't ever want to think that I do talk too much. I always play back these videos and I say, Sam, you're talking too much. Ask somebody a question. Stephanie, you have another question? Just looking through. Okay, I'm going to believe that I've talked to you or I've lulled you to sleep. Jal Lumpkin, I hope that the breakdown of that changeover in I Can Do All Things Through Christ gives you a pathway, and of course the walking down of the notes and the chords is part of what I open with. It's just chords following a bass note or scale down, and it's just a placement of where the singer is going to be. Stephanie, all of my teaching videos are currently on my YouTube page. Let me share my YouTube page. I'm just going to go get it. Again, I consider myself an instructor and not a teacher. A teacher goes to a school and is taught by someone who knows more than them, and then you get certified and qualified to go out and and teach. I believe in the instructor mode. To me, the instructor is the person that has gotten the experience through practical means over a 10-year period. I don't think I could instruct anybody in the terms that I'm using if I just play and did not get any book knowledge, which is why I showed the book, the one book. I've got about I'll say maybe 10. I said 20 before because I invested in Keyboard Magazine back in 1992, and every time I look over at all of them, I go, gee, I bought all these Keyboard Magazines subscriptions for all these years, learning what the practices they would give lessons in those books way back then on how to play scales and how to do chords, and I would learn from that. One was it Chick Corea? It was a John Rule. There was a series of jazz notes. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go that I never really learned perfectly, but it taught me a discipline of what I did not have in the key of G. Let's get out of this. Because they didn't show videos back then. They just had the notes on a piece of paper. Wow. I haven't done that in a while. Started wrong. Used to know this by heart. Wow. I haven't practiced that in probably 30 years because there was no one to show me the correct fingering. I'd had to hear it. It was a MIDI file. I could hear it, and then I'd sit there and figure out, well, gee, how is he playing? What fingering is he using? Wow. I'd have to go back and find that book and find those exercises again. But it was a way for me to get indoctrinated into this. What is the jazz regiment like? And it is rough. But because I tried, my fingering picked up at different speeds. I learned a different style, different language, novice at best, but that's what trying different approaches to this music thing afforded me. Now, Do I suggest that everybody follow my path? No, follow the path that is in front of you. If I can be a steering personality, if you can, and again, as I say, I'm not the best. There are better, tons better. But for where I was required, I did my part. If you had someone singing a solo who sung the wrong notes, if I knew the song, I supported them by pitching the song to where they could get the highest note without struggling. Usually that's His Eyes on the Sparrow. Most people don't know where to start that song. I would listen to a person in a microphone who would be speaking. You know, most people give their dissertation before they sing. And if it was a high soprano, I said, okay, put them in the key of D flat. Because the highest note is going to be, let me see, is it D flat or G? That's too low. E flat. No, A flat. That would be their highest note because I understood scales. If it was a tenor or a tenor voice, and they would give it honor to God who's the head of the household and thankful for the opportunity to sing while they're talking. If they spoke musically, I could hear where they were, and if they called out the song they're going to sing, I would go, okay, tenor voice. I better take them down to highest note shouldn't be above A flat. I really shouldn't be any higher than F, unless, of course, they were an actual high tenor. Now, if they, of course, would ask me or say, put me in this key, then I lock them into where they're going to be. And I would hear them struggle sometimes because sometimes they asked someone who played for them in the past, what key was I in? If they didn't know what key they were in, they would say, oh, you're in B flat, Doc. And if they didn't know what B flat sounded like, then they could have been in A flat. But because they knew B flat, you're in B flat. No, I always knew. So if somebody would say, oh, I'm doing this song, I'm going to do it in the key of G. I'm going, to myself, I'm going, really? Okay, that's interesting. You're going to do I Won't Complain in the key of G? All right. Diminish. I had some good time. Drop down. Gospel minor, 6 minor. I knew they were going to get to that note there, and they're going to struggle. I said, no, that's not the key you want to be in. If you're a man, you don't want to be in that key. That's too high for you. Or if you're a soprano, or if you're an alto, you don't want to be doing it in A flat. You want to be doing it in E flat. But that's when you get to work with singers. Well, when you're a musician and you find yourself thrust into a service and someone comes in and they're asked to sing a song, back in my day, I watch other musicians begin to tremble. They'd all start moving away from the instruments. They'd look at me. If they saw me there, they said, hey, Doc, what? You got this one. I go, okay, which I understood what that meant. They did not want to be embarrassed if they sing a gospel song and they were not versed musically to go in any key other than the ones they practice in. So that's what I attempt to do in these type of live settings, is to raise the consciousness level of the novice musician, to tell him that yes, you will get better if you practice. This is what I recommend you practice. Pardon me. For one reason only, so you can hear every note that is possible. And then practice these basic chords so that you could hear every possible chords from these scales, both major and harmonic minor. And number 3, as you're learning music, apply what you learned in the 1 and 2, and then you will see your comfortability in playing leap. You'll grow by leaps and bounds. I often say if you can play in the key of C, you can play in the key of G, in the key of A, and in the key of D, because they all use similar notes except for one note or two notes, depending upon the scale. But the finger placement, you will see that a C in key of C is the same C in the key of F, and the same C in the key of G. It's the same key. So when you find yourself in those keys and you go, oh, I'm uncomfortable. Well, can you play in C? Yep. Then you can play in G and F and D. Now E is a little different animal because of all the sharps, but at least you got those basic ones down. Those are the ones that you can now practice in the E. And then if you're playing in A major, which is the key that I watched and listened to Glenn Gibson play in, I said, okay, why would he do the Lord's Prayer in A major? He was on a Hammond B3, so it wasn't transposed button. So don't think it was there. But it gave me an opportunity now to listen and then go to my keyboard while he's playing and go, okay, all right, he's doing the drop 2, all right. He's letting the singer sing her notes, and he's just chording behind her with drop 2 notes. Okay. But why did he put that chord there when she got to that part of the song? That's the mysterious part about music. When I ask myself musically, I know what chord that I play there, but he played this one. Was it on purpose? Did he mean to do it? Or was he caught off guard? And I'll never know unless I ask him, and I wouldn't. I often try not to break down another musician's style because that's his. But if I'm asked to learn a song and that musician is in that song, I'm going to learn his style one way or the other. So I'm going to bring this to a close. If there are no other questions, thank you for coming in and spending some time with me. This will, of course, stay up on my page, and it will stay in the Musicians Helping Musicians page. For you guys and gals who are on the Musicians Helping Musicians page, I'm Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services. I have been helping musicians get a grasp on gospel music as a church musician since 1992. So I am in year 30 of helping musicians. Before there was a helping musicians, there was a Samuel Tolbert helping musicians wherever he can with any kind of understanding and knowledge that will help them become their best. I'm not concerned about you becoming better than me. I want you to be, whenever you find yourself in a service setting, be it a funeral, be it a praise service, be it a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, or just playing for children, I want you to be the best you want to be for that moment, so that you can say, yes, when I sat down and turned the keyboard on, turned the organ on, mixed my sounds, and played, I was the best for that moment. That's all that I'm looking to do, helping you get to be your best. All right. Sam Tolbert, Sound of Joy Music Services. I'm going to give you my closing outro. I've been working on these things. For those of us that are African American descent, I hate using the term black because that's a color, but we are in Black History Month 2022. I'd ask you to check out my YouTube page. I've got a lot of videos there. I put teaching videos for the playing some of your more standard hymns. I purposely put that there so that if you find yourself at some period during this month being asked to play a song for Black History, you can have 3 or 4 standard to pick for and some extra ones I put there. And I'm going to take you out on my closing page. Be blessed. Look to see you soon. Take care.